Up next, we have Marcus, who's going to talk to us about Collabora and what you guys are doing with open source and how what sort of conservation projects you're looking to support. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks again for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about Collabora and open source software and open source communities. And yeah, I work for Collabora, which is basically an open source software consultancy. And our vision is to bring open source software to the enterprise and to help all companies, communities to adopt open source software and to exploit it. And to that end, since 2005, we have been helping all kinds of companies worldwide to use open source software through various domains. And we have over 100 employees distributed all over the world. We help people in various technologies from multimedia, video streaming, and coding, recording, but also across the whole stack. So the operating system, kernel, graphic drivers, and platform integration. And we also have experts that work in XR, virtual reality, and machine learning. Now, since I mentioned that Collabora is an open source consultancy, and the emphasis is really on the term open source, what does open source actually mean? And open source is a term that originally referred to open source software, so OSS. And open source software is code that is designed to be publicly accessible by anyone. Everyone can see the code, can modify it, can distribute it as they see fit. And open source software is developed in a decentralized and collaborative way. Relying on peer reviews, community production, and open source software is often cheaper, more flexible, has a longer longevity than its proprietary peers because it's developed by communities rather than a single person or a company. And open source has now since then become a movement and a way of working that reaches beyond the software production. And the open source movement uses the values and the decentralized production model that you can find there for other areas to solve problems in their communities and industries. A simple slide that I prepared, basically what you must know about open source. Some key aspects. And the first one is key capabilities. And open source software offers IT organizations distinct benefits over homegrown or third-party proprietary alternatives, such as the cost savings, flexibility, and the latest technology involvements. And also another key aspect is the maturity level. In the last couple of decades, the growing majority of open source software has won the trust of almost every industry community in terms of reliability, scalability, and innovation. And of course, mass adoption from students, developers, startups, governments, and to big global corporations, open source has become a preferred choice of future-proof enterprise IT architectures. And last but not least, obviously, innovation. I mentioned before, that's really a really important topic. All the innovations in the recent years in areas such as cloud computing, big data, artificial intelligence have happened in the open source ecosystem. It has become basically the primary choice for the digital economy all around the world. Also, open source is the new innovation engine. From WordPress, Apache Hadoop, Android to Linux, these are all really famous projects. What is the common trend among all of them? It's open source, the dominant software model for innovation in the new digital economy. ideas take shape with collaborative efforts from companies, individuals, and obviously the distributed community. And this makes it such a powerful tool, like a building block of all modern architectures that can benefit from open source and often have like a direct impact on the business value, particular for early adopters. Why open source? I like, if you talk with people, this question comes up all the time. Why open source? Why would I give my code away for free, my software away for free? And there are like various benefits that are really unique to open source that you can't find anywhere else. And one of them, the big one, is flexibility and adaptability. And proprietary software are commercial developments. The source code is only accessible to the vendor. And with open source software, the source code is fully accessible, and you can do everything that you want with it. Obviously, independence from vendors is a big point for everyone, especially like for Collabora. The use of proprietary software binds often companies to manufacturers in like a long term, and vendor like lock-in makes it really challenging to switch to alternatives because you often have like a really high cost to do the adaptation again, to integrate it into your environment. Just to give you an example, if you have like any problem with like Microsoft Office, for example, you can't just fix it. Like, there's no company you can go to and like say like, can you help me? Microsoft has to do it. But if you switch to like an alternative open source solution like LibreOffice, for example, you can basically tinker every single bit. Also, like software quality and security, global communities ensure ongoing development and promote like a high level of innovation. And security gaps are like quickly discovered and closed under the security of like many eyes. Also, best cost like of ownership. Open source typically features lower license fees or like no license fees at all. You can do like the development in-house or by freely selecting like IT services like Collabora. Therefore, like open source often provides the lowest total cost of ownership. And last but not least, continuous technology innovation, because open source software usually contains hundreds or even like thousands of other like open source products, each fulfilling like a vital role. It solves critical business problems for organizations, and it's really like driving the innovation. Now, the question is like, how does Collabora fit into this? And as I said, Collabora basically works on the entire stack. In the best case, like people come to us, communities come to us with a problem, and then we help them by selecting open source software to solve their problem. We also provide training. As I said, we have experts in different areas. So if you have like a specific problem that you want to solve in-house, but you don't have the expertise, we can actually help you to get this knowledge, to bring you up to speed and solve these problems. Yeah, we work with different companies, as I mentioned, across different areas. I'm pretty sure like everyone here uses some open source project where like someone from Collabora had the hands in. Everyone that uses like an Android phone, for example, or like I'm pretty sure like some of the projects that we have heard today are also like using open source products where they're either run on like open source projects or like actually have some contributions from team members of like, Collabora. Yes, that's basically what I wanted to tell you, like educate you a little bit more about open source, like how important open source is and how open source can drive the innovation.
I think, thanks so much for that, Marcus. I think open source has been a critical part of our community, and we have a huge number of open projects just emerging and changing the landscape of conservation. We've seen that in the last few years, particularly around acoustics with open acoustic devices and AudioMoth and a lot of other examples. So it was great to hear a bit more about what you guys are doing and the open source landscape. I'm curious, what if you're working with conservationists, like who would you like to work with, or who are you interested? If someone listens to this talk, who should reach out to you, and what would you? Who's your dream person to get in touch?
I mean, I can give you a great example. Currently, we work with a green farm together that grow like strawberries here in Canada. And it's seen as like a more like a research facility. So they're trying out new things. And right now we are collecting like a data set for strawberries to like train like a machine learning model to increase like the growth rate and like identify diseases. And as I said, we follow like the whole open source idea. So we will release like the data set, we will release the models, everything along the way. And these are like the people that actually understand the benefits of open source, because like I understand it's really challenging to say like, oh, like I'll release everything, especially if like you worked on this like for years and years, and then like someone comes and like makes money off like your own idea. But that's why we're trying to convince people like the open source can actually help you, and it's not like this dangerous thing.
I think our audience is a bit different though, because like people making money off conservation, it's not the driving motivation. Our market's not big enough. And so I think that's part of the leaning towards open as well, and particularly in our community, the collaboration, it tends towards collaboration. Talia, maybe you can jump in and talk about some of the stuff that we hear from our community in like the state of conservation tech.
On open source work?
Yeah, not just open source, but like the leaning towards collaboration and the competition, you know, the competition versus collaboration sort of piece.
Yeah, I guess just with so we survey our community every year, asking them what they're working on and what their challenges are and what they think would improve the field. And that's just one of the things that comes up every single year again and again, are that we need, of course, lower cost and more effective tools, but mostly that we need to, like, competition for limited resources and duplication of efforts are two of the things that come up most frequently in the community. So there are really widespread calls for more open source efforts, more collaboration, and that's really what we're trying to facilitate through our programs with Wild Labs as well.
And I think that's why we're interested in having you guys talk, and why we're, just for everyone's transparency, Collabora's a supporter of Wild Labs. So they're supporting the conservation tech community by helping us and helping all of you create spaces like this to come together. So the work that you guys are doing and the ethos and natural tendencies in our world are really nicely aligned as well. And what's the best pathway for people to like figure out how to collaborate with you guys and have you guys get more involved in our community, do you think?
I guess like for us, like the challenging thing is to identify problems, because we're usually software engineers, right? We have the knowledge, we can solve problems, but as long as you're not like super involved in the project, you don't know what the problem is. So like identifying this is like the first thing. Like we don't have a problem to like jump into like an existing project and help people. And as I said, like open source means that we give this knowledge away for free. But yeah, like this big problem is like identifying problems.
I think that's something we hear often from the tech side of the fence, which is why we've been doing lots of work, like a lot of the work that Talia is leading and that a lot of our community members have been involved in, whether it's state of conservation tech, but more recently, all of the research we've been doing into the horizon scan and to movement ecology is to pull out those challenges and areas of priority. So it might be of interest. We'll be sharing more of those results and like the innovation priorities coming out of our community very soon, Talia. we had one of the workshops we held at ICCB was about the results of our Horizon Scan and mobilizing people around the priorities that community's sharing. But anyway, just to say, there's lots of that sort of work coming out that we could link in. Thank you very much, Marcus.